Kimberley, hi.
Good morning, Oliver. How are you? I guess it's evening for you.
But let's move on to your, side interests, like the advisory stuff that you're doing and the boards and things that you're on.
So I used to be the chair of the BC Aware campaign here in Vancouver, which has evolved into the Vancouver Privacy and Security Summit. And that was an event that was originally created by the ISACA Vancouver team. I wanted to do something different. So I sort of took a break for a bit. And then I was approached by Jo Stewart Rattray. She was on the board of ISACA International. She's in Australia, but their head office is based in Chicago. She was the individual that really created the She Leads Tech initiative within ISACA International. And they now have a global She Leads Tech Council, which is part of the One in Tech Foundation. The One in Tech Foundation is a nonprofit organization under ISACA International that has three pillars. So there's Young Leaders in Tech, there's We Lead Tech, and then there's She Leads Tech. That was something that was really appealing to me because it's very near and dear to my heart with, helping empower, elevate, and engage women into technology and cybersecurity. The other thing that I still do is I'm on the advisory board for the Vancouver International Privacy and Security Summit. And those are things that I think it's important to volunteer. I've volunteered since I was a 12-year-old kid. I've always loved volunteering. And the beauty about volunteering is you're not only serving your community, whether that's regional or global, but it is paying you back in such a fabulous way to see where you're helping others. And I've always had a huge passion to help people. It's not only done that, it's opened career doors and opportunities for me. So it's had that added benefit that really wasn't expected by volunteering. You build your network, you learn more about career opportunities. And that is part of the work that I was recognized for IT World Canada. So I was very fortunate to be part of that group, and I'm very grateful and thankful, and intend to use that platform to share what I can with individuals coming into this field or considering a career shift, and sharing advice or resources that I can with them to help them through their journey. I have people that reach out to me on LinkedIn and just ask for my time, and 30 minutes I think is a fair sharing of your time to give advice and build that network, and it always comes back and pays you back. So that idea of paying it forward and really helping others, like you just think of a lot of people that are new to the country and they don't have a network, and everyone's so busy in their day-to-day lives that they just have no desire to share their time with people. And I just would really encourage anyone, especially in cybersecurity, we have this massive global talent shortage. Like, do what you can to get more people in and make it a warm place and a welcoming place to be.
Firstly, well done on the award. Congratulations on that. Very well deserved. I think the problem that technology has had for a long time, and I know this is changing, I'm perhaps going to make some sweeping generalizations, but I think incredibly technical or engineering minded people aren't always the best people, right? And so they're very good with, and I was like, it took a long time for me to get to the Oliver that you're talking to now, right? I was a programmer. I came out of university, did a computer science degree, realized I need to be a better communicator, and I needed to learn how to interact with stakeholders better. And I didn't even know what that word was, at the time. So I've kind of been on this, I suppose, sort of mission, as it were, to kind of translate. So my day job, it is to translate between different worlds, like technology and business is often what I'm translating, but is also then to make sure others understand technology or have the opportunity to at least see what the door is. Look at that door there. You do want to step through that door. It's a really exciting door, but you kind of need to know it exists before you can even know how to navigate your way through it. So that really, really resonates with me. And beautifully, Kimberley, it moves us on to the main part of the conversation I wanted to have with you. It's interesting sort of hear your journey into technology, which is great. It's a non sort of traditional journey, which is brilliant. But what are your challenges in what are your experiences of this challenge that technology and cyber has around hiring, say, women and people from different backgrounds?
My experience, I grew up on a farm as a tomboy. I've worked in male-dominated industries since I was 19. When I was a kid, I had lots of male friends. I was like one of the guys. So my experience is going to be very different. I can share a little bit about that. I can share a little bit about what I see happen with other people. There's the obvious, there's the, comments that are made because you're a female, or there's just the basics that happen all the time. So I'm going to kind of go outside of that a little bit.
Yep.
When I think of some challenges, I've been underpaid compared to my male colleagues, and for no reason, like no reason that I could see. We had very similar backgrounds, very similar experience. I wound up being the leader on that sales team, but I was still paid less. Like that just doesn't make any sense.
No.
One thing, and I've been guilty of this before, when you talk about challenges in finding talent, I was on the, as I mentioned, I chaired the BC Aware campaign. And this one year we created a panel, and it was a Manel. It was all men. And I
love
got
that. I'm writing that one down. That's a brilliant one. A Manel. Okay, brilliant. Very good.
And we got called out by a lady in our, a well-respected individual in our cybersecurity community. And she said, like, what is the deal? Why is there only men? I didn't know that. I didn't notice it. I'm the one that was partly responsible for creating the panel. And I just had this sinking feeling in my stomach that how could I let that happen? Why did I not see that happen? And then I started rationalizing and making excuses of, oh, well, I don't know that many women in cybersecurity, so we just didn't do it. Well, that's not fair, and that's not right, and that's not the answer. So deliberately going out and finding candidates and finding talent and looking for diverse people to bring into that organization, whether it's background, racial diversity, gender diversity, there has to be a concerted effort. And one of the challenges is that there's not. It's the easy way out. If you're a hiring manager and you get 50 resumes and you look and 47 of them are men, well, that's a problem. So why is that happening? What have you done to deliberately go out with you and your recruiting team to actually target women? So when you think of some of the challenges of what women face and what may be a reason, there's lots of them, but there may be reasons of why they don't come into the industry. I think there's a few things. There's the thought that, you know, that it is very male dominated, that girls don't do that. And I always go back to this one panel that I saw, and there was all men, and then there was a female firefighter. She was the lieutenant of her team. And I sat there thinking, wow, I'm a 45-year-old woman, and I've never seen a female firefighter lieutenant before. So that back to, you can't be what you can't see. We need to start leveraging women in technology and leadership roles and making sure they're more prominent in the community and showing people that, hey, they do exist and they can, you know, do these roles, and that it's actually exciting. It's fun. It's, you know, something we can be passionate about. So again, thank you for inviting me to have the conversation with you.
Well, that's partly exactly the reason why I wanted you on. I want to start showcasing more females in the profession. And I'd like to jump in here actually and ask you, I think there's a problem around the fact that guys, again, excuse the just sweeping generalization, guys often are more confident about putting themselves out there, saying things, doing public speaking. I think generally, and I think the problem is it then becomes self-selecting, you know, so you ask them, oh, do you want to be part of a panel for, you know, for a conference or what have you, or, you know, do you want to kind of be a speaker? And the default response is no. And I wonder if that's because there's more self-consciousness, there's more, you know, afraidness about putting yourself out there. I know there was a study done about if there's a job spec and there are 10 things on that job spec and 8 of them a woman can't do, she won't apply. If a man looks at that job spec and there's 8 of them he can't do, he'll go, well, it'll be fine. Oh, I can do those. I can do it. So I think there is a degree though of different sort of traits. You know, people say that, you know, it doesn't make a difference if you're male or female. It shouldn't do, but the reality is that, I go back to my point I made earlier about diverse teams having different viewpoints and bringing different pieces to the puzzle. I think we have to accept men and women are different and they bring different things to the table. But it means that when you hire them and when you ask them to do things, you have to approach it in a different way. I think my problem is I'll always go out and ask, you know, do you want to come part of Architect tomorrow, in a guy kind of way, and therefore I won't get females coming back to me because the way I'm approaching them probably would be very off. Because oh no, that doesn't sound like that's for me. And maybe that's part of the problem. We get, like you say, we get this self-selecting kind of thing happening.
I think it's true. And I've seen it, and I've been that person myself where I think, oh gosh, I shouldn't apply for that because I don't have, you know, all the tick boxes.
Yeah.
And I think encouraging, first of all, trying it. And if you fail, well, so what? Try something else. And I think the encouraging one another to just go for it. And I have that conversation with a lot of the women in my network and colleagues, whether, they're peers through volunteering on different boards, or they're been, resellers that I work with, or other vendors, or what have you. So I do my very best to encourage them to just go for it. The other thing too, we talked a little bit about is that bro culture. And I think it was Liza May Austin's post on LinkedIn about, how to attract more women into cybersecurity. And there is the bro culture. And I think in many industries where, maybe there's not a talent shortage, and I'm not even going to use an industry correctly, but let's say there's an industry, there's not a talent shortage, there's not a real desire to go out and create diversity other than, they think they need to fulfill a mandate or fulfill a quota. But in cybersecurity, you have to create a more diverse culture for all of the good reasons that you said. But also, if you don't, you're not going to fill that skills gap and that that shortage of talent. So that bro culture, I think, is one of the things that does hold a lot of women back from coming into the industry. I've worked for, some of the largest cybersecurity vendors in the world, worked for, two of the largest telecom technology companies in the country. And there are instances of that bro culture. And I've been the one sitting at the table saying, grow up, you're acting like 12-year-old boys, or you're acting like frat boys. That's not funny. Or, you have to speak up, and you have to, when somebody is saying something that's not appropriate, those are just the basics, but also encouraging them to think differently of why would that not be appealing to a woman to come into that team? Well, it's not fun. Or even things like this one.
Also, it takes real courage for you to start, just to make a stand, right? Because if you're assessed, your performance is assessed by mostly men, and you're in a culture that's male dominated, then sticking your head above the parapet and sort of challenging the behavior isn't necessarily going to reward you. It's going to get you kind of called out, and So
it does. And I think that's, that the backlash that people may receive is why they don't say anything. Even one thing that drives me mental is, golf is such a big entertaining thing with clients and customers. I'm a
I hate golf, but carry on.
Okay. Well, I actually love it, but I love it for 9 holes. And then I'm like, okay, I need to poke my eye out. I'm an adrenaline junkie, and I just am not into golf. But you just look at golf as an example. When you're on the golf course, a lot of business is being done in the golf course. So that sucks, because I don't like golf, and I'm going to either have to really suck it up and learn how to golf, or maybe I want to do something that I want to do. Well, how weird would it be to invite my client? Can we go to the spa for the afternoon? That just is equally bizarre. So I think back to that bro culture, I just think there needs to be a lot of change around understanding what will attract women into an organization, and make a concerted effort to change, whether it's the way that we speak to people, the activities that we, that we host for customers. Is it a whiskey tasting, or is it a coffee tasting, or is it a wine tasting? What's, and not just attracting talent, but attracting female customers. I've had some of my female clients respond back and saying, are you kidding? A whiskey tasting? Yet I've had other female clients saying, awesome, I love whiskey, I love scotch. So it's difficult, it's challenging to navigate. And I think a lot of the challenges that are existing today are improving, but there's still a lot of work to overcome those. And I think there's some really great ideas that a lot of people are sharing, even though that post from Eliza May about the ideas that she had around how do you attract more women into this space. So I do see improvement.
If folks haven't read that article, I'll definitely include a link, because it's definitely recommended reading. It opened my eyes, and there was a couple of bits in it that I mean, naturally, I'm perhaps going to react to it because it's not my worldview, but some of it made absolute sense. We shouldn't do that. But the first one I think that she listed, one of the top ones she listed, was accept that some people are going into it for the paycheck. They're not passionate about it, and I kind of really struggle with that one, because we talked about this sort of passion and potential thing earlier. I mean, for me, I think life can't just be about a pay. But maybe I'm in a privileged position in that I can take that stand, that I can choose to do something that I care about or that I find really, really interesting. But perhaps that's not always the case for everyone. So maybe again that's a bias of mine. that I think that everyone should kind of be really passionate about it. And that perhaps that's why I'm surrounded by people that are very similar, when I've been hiring. But yeah, it's not easy. And I know it's also, I find this really difficult to talk about. So it's great talking to you, Kim, because you and I have worked together a bit, and we respect each other. So I feel sort of safe talking to you about this. But sometimes it's really difficult with diversity to sort of talk about it, because you don't want to kind of put a foot wrong. You don't want to say the wrong thing or upset someone. But at the same time, this stuff needs to be talked about. If it's not talked about, we're not going to move forward. So
agreed. And I think having the one thing that I really love about when there is a conversation that might be hard to have is asking questions to say, like, what works for you, what doesn't, how are you feeling, what is this experience like for you compared to me?
Mm-hmm.
And being that sponge to understand and to learn. And we may not be able to respond in an immediate fashion to say, well, I'm going to change the way I think about this, or I'm going to change the way I speak or act, but it sinks in, and we all do this. We all need to start thinking differently. But I love the fact that you're just asking those questions, and it's starting to become, call it less taboo, like where, male colleagues, where you'll say something to them like, you meathead, like, don't talk like that. No one wants to hear that. And then they kind of look at you like, oh, okay, yeah, that's true. And the other thing I love to reference is a lot of these things that are being said, or the things that are being done, you just ask them, maybe they have a daughter, like, would you want your daughter treated that way? Or would you want your daughter spoken to that way? Or what about your mom or your wife or your sister, your niece, your nephew, what have you? And they start to think about it a bit differently. And I love adding humor into those sides of the conversation. You want to be careful, because you don't want to take away from the seriousness of
but you
the
need to try and
conversation.
diffuse. Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes humor does open things up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I'm going to ask, what's the biggest success other than yourself? You've been very successful in moving through different sort of verticals and getting to where you are today. And I think that's a large part because you just have this amazing work ethic, and you're kind of very determined, which is amazing. But what success stories have you kind of heard where people have perhaps come from a different background? It could be ladies, or it could be people from different backgrounds who've actually made a success of this. And what do you think has made them successful versus others who've perhaps just sort of gone, do you know what, this is too hard, I'm going to walk away?
Yeah. I look at, so that I'll touch on one person. Her name is Rinki Sethi. She's the CISO of Twitter right now. She used to be VP of security at Palo Alto Networks. I love her background and I love her journey. And she is an absolutely brilliant, passionate, compassionate, caring individual. And she was very kind and spent time with me when I was at Palo Alto Networks on my journey. Okay. But she's one of those people who I love following kind of her career progression and seeing the success story of coming from a technical background into, now a leadership. Obviously you need to be technical to be a CISO, but she's really now in a business leadership role. Success stories for me, I think of role models and, men and women that have done things that are outside the norm. And I was recently on a panel with the She Leads Tech team. It was a global panel. So there was panelists from all over the world. And there was a gentleman who is an IT leader in Singapore. And he struggled with some of the things we just talked about, that he was trying to create a more diverse team, but the applicants that he was getting, there wasn't a lot of women. So that was going to make it difficult to choose somebody. What he did is mind-blowing to me. And he's my hero for doing this. He hired a woman who had most of the credentials. She met most of the requirements. She was underqualified compared to some of the other male candidates, but what he saw in her was just what you and I talked about, like that passion, the desire to learn. And she really needed somebody to take a chance on her. You don't see that very often. And he did that. He also made it, his personal mandate. He went out on a limb to do this and took some heat by doing this. So he wanted to make sure, like, boy, this needs to be a success. But he had skin in the game. He wanted to make sure that she was successful and that she had all the support that she needed so that he could create that diverse team, recognizing those soft transferable skills, that she had those, and maybe she didn't have, some of the technical training that she needed. So when you think of role models, those are some examples of people that I really look up to, and that I would encourage many more people to take those chances and take those risks. And it does take courage, and you might fail, and you're putting your neck on the line for somebody else. But without champions like that, and without role models like that, we're going to struggle to fill this talent gap. Now, outside of, just picking that individual because she was diverse, the other thing he did was she didn't meet all the requirements. So whether that's male, female, I think a lot of these roles that are posted, back to that comment about the unicorn search, hiring managers need to do a few things, in my opinion. The first one is stop looking for the unicorn. You're not going to find it. Realize that you're going to have to take a candidate that maybe isn't going to meet all those criteria. But if you want to fill that role in 2 months versus 8 months, you need to do it. You also need to recognize that cybersecurity, until this talent shortage is changed, you're going to lose some of your staff. The turnover is quite high. But then try pulling people from within your organization into your security team, into your technology team that may have a different skill set. Maybe they're on the accounting team or they're looking for a change. I think and it's not just hiring managers, it's HR teams and it's recruiters. There's not enough creativity in our field right now to solve that talent gap. It's like it's like going to an apple tree and you need 100 apples and there's only 8 on the tree. Turning around and looking at the tree from another direction, there's not suddenly going to be 100 apples. And they have to recognize that you have to do something different. So maybe you don't need apples, maybe you need oranges or pears, and you can still make a lovely fruit salad. So it has to change, and it's not going to happen anytime soon, but I don't know how in tune a lot of recruiting managers are with how drastic this talent shortage is, and how they are going to play a really valuable role in changing that.
That's good advice for the future of hiring. But Kimberley, it's been fantastic talking to you. I knew this would be a great conversation, and you haven't disappointed, so thank you very much. Thanks again for your time. I look forward to getting involved in more Architect Tomorrow things in the community. So with that, thanks very much, Kimberley.
Thank you very much, Oliver. It was a pleasure to chat with you. I really appreciate it.